because there's a science and there's an art to it, right?
Yeah.
The science is the orders that you read and how to do it, but then there's the art of how to actually get in the trenches and how to manipulate recruits. I call it manipulating because you're trying to make convince them that this is gonna be the greatest thing on earth. There's an art to it. How did you learn to manipulate? How did you get that down? Is it the same thing on recruiting? Is there an art and a science? Is there any way that you like, okay, well, first I got to learn the science and then I got to learn the art, or you like a natural straight off the bat?
And there's certainly the science to it and the art to it. I think the science is the most important part, and I say that in the sense of what we do as Marine recruiters is undisputably the best amongst the military services, right? Like our structured interview system. And although if you solely go off of the science, right, the manual, you're going to sound robotic. So there has to be an art to balance it out, right? Because we're not speaking to Marines. We're kneecap to kneecap with somebody who's never sat in front of a military person before. So we have to be able to relate to them as well. Recruiting school will teach you in the sense of they're telling you don't be robotic, but essentially, if you know the science, you'll graduate. And I can say that like when you graduate, you get stationed at wherever you're getting assigned to at. You one of the first things that you do out there is you go to PAR training, which is like you and all the other new recruiters will go to the head shed for a week or 2 weeks, and you kind of just recap all the stuff that you learned in recruiting school, and you kind of do that, and everybody's kind of explaining like how their experiences have been out there. But one way that I found to measure myself against my peers is compare my numbers to the numbers of the people in PAR training. We all got out there at the same time. And I what I realized is myself and one other recruiter were hands down like the best in our PAR class. And me, like, I mean, whatever my personality was, but the other guy that was writing the same numbers that I was writing, he was a little bit of an awkward speaker, and then you had the other guys in there that had like, some swag to them and whatever. But they hadn't even wrote a contract. Me and the other kid, we've written, I don't know, like 5 contracts at this point. And I remember going through that PAR training and they're asking, this or that. And the guy that had all the swag in the world, he recruited like in the hood. And he said, yeah, what we do over here at this RSS is because our system is called MC3, right? That's what we use to talk to kids, the structured system. He's like, we use what we call ghetto MC3. And mind you, his RSS is continuing to miss mission, and this guy hasn't written a contract. Like, and it's not disrespect to this guy, but he hadn't mastered the science of it yet. And the ARI, the assistant recruiting instructor, he told us right there, well, maybe you should just learn MC3 first. You're trying to change this system and you don't even know what MC3 is. And I think he was absolutely right. To get a little bit more into the art, I think that I did a good job of learning the science. And the art, I was lucky enough to have somebody like Lou, and we had these other 2 recruiters. They're all very good recruiters. And I was able to witness them and see how they interacted. And they were, each of them, completely different people. One's white as snow, the other one's black as night, and the other one's from Puerto Rico. And then, and they all had different personalities, but they all were putting bodies into the Marine Corps. And so I was able to, just like, if I'm trying to become a good leader and I want to pick leadership styles and traits from those around me and leave out the stuff that I didn't necessarily like, I was able to do that. And that's where my art came into it, right? And I was successful. But what I will say though is once I became the boss of that office, I learned very quickly that I was pretty good at putting people in because I've done well with the science and the art. What I was bad at was teaching my own art to other people. I wasn't great at showing Ant the art. I mean, he might have witnessed me do some things and he might have learned from me. But if somebody told me like, hey, take your recruiter out there and show them exactly how to do it, I wasn't good at performing in that way because at that point there wasn't a science to that. You know what I mean? Like I didn't have an instruction manual of how I'm supposed to teach this person. I could go out with Ant and have him watch me from a distance, and I'll go up to somebody. If I went up to 5 people, I could probably get phone numbers from 3 of them. But he can't hear what I'm saying because if he was standing there right there with me, it's messing up my art. So
Yeah.
I guess that is the way that I would explain it. There's definitely a balance in there. I think the science of it's very important because that's what makes us Marine Corps recruiters. To answer your question.
Yeah, so for as far as drill sergeant duty, again, I think me and you are have the same issues because I had, drill sergeants that I need to teach, but sometimes I will tell them like you got to do it like this, and I wasn't very good at explaining
Yeah.
how to manage the art, right? There is a lot of gunner sergeants that get to DI school or staff sergeants that get to DI school, and for some reason they think that because they're gunnies and staff sergeants they're gonna get treated different. No, you're not. However, whenever you get to the trenches and whenever you get to your first company, you're probably gonna move up faster than others because of your rank. But while you're in the high school, you're not. Um, but needless to say, there's a lot of people that don't manage the art or don't get down the art, and they move up fast. That just happens. Sometimes people get relieved. Sometimes, people get hurt and they get kicked out, or they don't get kicked out. They get sent to support battalion, and it just so happens to the gunner sergeant be the next one up. So they just got to fill the spots, right? And sometimes it's politics. It's a lot of politics.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's done, he's done one cycle of everything, maybe 3 cycles, and he's got to be a chief now. So he doesn't know the art to it. And I've seen sergeants dominate it, and sergeants outperform gunner sergeants all the time while on the out duty because they know the art. They
Mm-hmm.
know how to get a whole platoon to buy in. They know how to get the whole platoon to like, okay, one recruit to do what he's told in an efficient manner. They know how to train their hats because ultimately it comes down to that. You know how to train your hats, you'll be fine. So I think I did manage the art and the science behind everything. There's obviously IT is the biggest disciplinary tool, but the art, right? If you know that the IT session is about to finish and you have to go to chow, there's an art to it. Hey, you still can squeeze some juice out of that recruit with discipline. Um, there's an art to it. I'm not gonna tell you what it is, but there's an art to it.